The carry role is one of the strongest late game roles in Predecessor, as well as one of the quickest roles to be sent back to the fountain. Over the past couple weeks, I've had multiple people reach out to me on how to improve as a carry in Predecessor. So here we are. Welcome to the basic fundamentals of ADC. I'll be breaking this guide into 4 parts: game mechanics, laning phase, late game, and team fight objective play. In game mechanics, we'll be covering movement speed, tower gold, wards, and gold buff. Movement speed in Predecessor is interesting, as you move the same speed backwards and forwards. As you see here with Murdoch, this is extremely important as you can walk backwards to dodge abilities as you are running away, as long as you don't get stuck on a wall. You also move slightly slower when you're using basic attacks, so keep this in mind if you're trying to chase someone down. When it comes to tower gold, you actually get more gold if you're in the radius of a tower as it is destroyed versus being farther away. What this means is that towers have 2 separate gold values: global gold for the whole team and local gold for everyone who is within the tower. Let's say local gold is 300. If one person kills a tower, they would get 300 bonus gold on top of the global gold. If there were 2 players under the tower, as they killed it, they would split the local gold 50-50 and get 150 each, and so on and so forth. Gold camp is an important and not so important camp. It always gives the same amount of XP, but the gold value of the camp scales over time. I believe it starts at roughly 60 gold, and I think it scales to 200 gold at 20 minutes. Feel free to test that out and let me know. It is important to get the camp though whenever you are safe to do so, but not go for the camp if you're going to miss a wave of minions, as the XP and gold of the minions is more important than the value of gold camp. When it comes to warding, I could talk about this topic all day as every situation changes on how you need to ward. We will focus mainly on the dual lane. Dual lane starts on the side that is closest to the Fangtooth. The reason why dual lane is on this side of the map is due to the early pressure and presence of the Fangtooth. Let's say you start on the top side of the map. Warding from the top side of the map, you have 2 main locations to ward and even a third if necessary. The first 2 wards that you would look for would be in the river at the steps, and the other location would be at the fog wall closest to the enemy. The reason why these wards are great is they give you enough time to respond if a jungler or mid laner rotates through the jungle. You should have enough time to back off. The third ward is not needed, but it is possible to have it warded as well, as it would cover every possible rotation, but I would worry not too much about it right now. Now for the bottom side of the map, there's 3 locations you can ward. You want to ward the enemy's fog wall as well as the river fog wall. On the bottom side, you can see it's the same 3 wards but just in reverse. Once again, these cover all options of rotations coming into your lane. This brings us into our next discussion, laning phase. Laning phase happens constantly throughout the match. I found the easiest way to break up laning phase was into 3 parts: matchups, wave management, and rotations. Before laning phase even starts, you have to understand the matchup you are facing. For example, a Richter Revenant lane will do more damage than a Narbash Sparrow lane early game. With this in mind, you have to play more passive in lane to reduce the odds of you dying in lane. As you play the game more and more, you'll be able to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each matchup, but as this guide is focusing on the fundamentals, we'll save the information for a more in-depth video. Here you see me playing passive, just trying to ensure I can get XP and gold when I can, as my support decided to roam and apply pressure elsewhere. So I must make do with what I have and try not to die, by also getting as much XP and gold as safely as possible. This is key. You may not be able to get every minion or every XP camp, but you can do as much as possible in your given scenario. When it comes to wave management, it's one of the most important tools for an ADC to utilize. We will cover what a slow push is, a fast push is, and what a freeze is. A slow push is when the minion wave will slowly move towards one direction, whether that be towards you or away from you. Here with Decker, you can see that she is pulling the minions towards her by harassing the enemy. It also means that she is also creating a slow push because my minions are still attacking the enemy minions while the enemy minions are chasing Decker. This is just one example of a slow push. Here I am as a Sparrow, freezing the wave under my tower so I can make the enemy Revenant lose gold and XP so I can push my lead while also putting him behind. Since I'm also freezing the wave at my tower line, it makes it easier for him to be ganked, putting him in a dangerous spot to farm. Here with Drongo, we had a little skirmish with the enemy duo lane where we ended up winning. After winning the fight, I try to push the lane as fast as possible to ensure that the wave crashes the tower so it can reset the wave back into a better position for me. Rotations are complex situations to understand. I'll do my best to explain when to rotate and when not to rotate, but there is no one rule fits all for this situation. Here you see the enemy ADC decides to rotate, but I decided to freeze the wave and not rotate, which resulted in the ADC missing roughly 2 waves of farm. Even though some of my team members did end up dying and complained I didn't rotate, we still ended up getting Fangtooth and I was 1 level up on the ADC. This allowed me to push my lead and kill the enemy ADC to further my lead even more. Here you see that I was ahead of the enemy ADC, and I decided since I was far enough ahead, I could rotate and apply pressure elsewhere to help my team. Learning how and when to rotate is a constant battle of evaluating your actions after the play to figure out how you could have done that play better. Once we start heading to the later stages of the game, we like to call that late game, it is still important to keep farming for your final items. Once ADCs are at their full build, they're inherently the strongest player on the field and kill anyone and anything. So keep farming while also being aware that you are in a safe position to do so. Late game tends to be the time where majority of the group fights tend to happen, so be ready to group up and defend objectives as they spawn with your team. My rule for grouping late game is if your team is starting to roam together, go join them, as any game is lost if the team does not work together. With this comes a lot of team fighting. There is team fighting in all stages of the game. They may not be 5-man team fights, but they will be maybe 3v3s, maybe 2v2s, etc. But team fights happen throughout the entire process of a Predecessor game. So when a team fight happens, you have two priorities as an ADC. Do as much damage as possible, while also taking the least amount of damage in return. What this means is use your teammates to set up for your damage. Your other priority is positioning. You want to put yourself out of harm's way so you do not end up dying in a team fight right away. My number one rule for ADC is don't be the first one to die in a team fight. Your other priority is what I call is target priorities. For example, we had an early team fight over the enemy blue buff. I see that the steal is in front of me engaging on someone else. With this in mind, I ignore the steal to do as much damage to the target that will do the most damage to my team. There will be situations where you want to ignore the tank and kill their carries first, and then there will be situations where you want to focus the tank and kill the carries later. This is something I could talk more about in an advanced guide, but I don't want to go too in depth as, like I said, there's so many ifs and buts about certain situations that I'll likely save this for another guide. Overall, this was my first guide, and I know I may have missed some key knowledge, but at the same time, my goal is not to overwhelm the audience or anyone that is trying to learn the game. If I missed anything, and if you have any recommendation for future content, please let me know down below. Until then, peace, peace, peace.